there is a story that has caught a lot of attention. And this is the story of how one mother is planning to sue her son's school in Virginia because her son has been highly influenced by the critical race theory curriculum. Let me just share with you the story of Melissa Riley. Melissa Riley is a white woman who's married to a black man who has a biracial son that's in the 8th grade. And so, Keenan, I want us to play just a little bit of what Melissa said on Fox. She went on Fox News and had a conversation about, okay. All right, I want to share this with you, and then let's see if we can get that. But she went on Fox News and had a conversation about why she was upset with her son. Essentially, her son has learned about being a black man, i.e., viewed from the critical race theory. And when he came home, he started to act differently. So differently, like not doing his chores, not doing what his mother's asked him to do, because he kept saying to his mother that it's racism, that she was asking him as a black boy to do these things.
Being taught in any public schools in America.
Critical race theory is not taught in schools. Critical race theory is not taught in any K through 12 school in America.
That's a lie, and a dangerous one. Critical race theory is being taught in American classrooms, and it's damaging the way our children view the world. Melissa Riley saw the radical curriculum at her 13-year-old son's middle school in Virginia. Melissa's son is biracial, but he'd never talked about his race or racial issues until the school forced it on him. Melissa is now suing his school, claiming they brainwashed her son. Melissa Riley joins me now, along with her attorney, Ryan Bangert, Alliance Defending Freedom Senior Counsel. All right, so Melissa, your son is, the father's black, you're white, and he'd never mentioned issues with race before, you're saying? What exactly changed?
Right, we didn't have issues before. He's in 8th grade. They introduced this critical program, and now he's having racial issues. That was not there before.
What kind of racial issues is he having?
Well, he's seeing himself just as a black man. He's seen things that don't go his way as racism, and he's finding safety in numbers now.
So when you're saying he gets a bad grade at school, he blames racism, or a girl rejects him on a date, racism, are those the kind of things you're seeing?
Yes, I asked him to clean the house, racism, yes.
You're kidding, right? Or are you serious?
No, I'm serious. They have totally changed his perspective. They have put him in a box.
So you're saying he doesn't want to do his chores because that's racist?
He's using it as an excuse because they've told him that that's how people see him, is as a black man that the world is against, and shows it as a negative now.
All right, so counselor, you're going to litigate this because obviously this is brainwashing and it's having a deleterious effect on this young man's brain. Is the school fighting back? What are they saying? Oh, we don't teach this, we don't do this?
Well, they certainly are fighting back, and they don't deny what they're teaching. They just simply think it's fine. They think it's okay. But it's not okay. It's never okay. It's never right for a school to teach kids that they're determined entirely by their race. It's never okay for a school to tell kids that bigotry should be fought with bigotry and racism should be fought by doubling down on racism. Those things are not okay. They're violations of students' civil rights.
Melissa, have you seen the materials that your son is studying that infected his brain?
Yes.
And what do they say?
I talked to the school as well.
Oh, you did?
Oh, yes. So when this program was put into motion, I talked to the school, and they told me that he could be a black spokesperson for the black community. When I told him I didn't think that that would be appropriate, they told me that if he was uncomfortable with the conversations, he and other children of color could go to a safe place during these conversations, and that's segregation.
Oh, boy. And your son's father, who's African American, how does he feel about all this?
I'm a single mom,
Okay.
so I'm teaching him everything.
Well, that's tough, and we salute you for that. And we hope everything works out and your son gets out of this phase and he can learn about writing and arithmetic instead of critical race theory. I think that would be better for him and better for everybody. Thank you guys, and good luck, and Godspeed, Melissa.
Woo! That's a lot to unpack, folks. That's a lot to unpack.
Can I start off by saying that her son is like such a smart ass? The fact that he took critical race theory and used that as an excuse to get out of doing everything around the house, it's pretty genius. Clearly he wanted to rile up his mom and get her upset, and he succeeded in doing that. I'm gonna just start there. Farajii, were you not weirded out though by the very beginning when she wouldn't say critical race theory? She wouldn't even use the word race. Like, did you? And
see, that's the problem that I'm having. Like, okay,
there's so many issues with this.
Like, this is the problem that I'm having. All right, let me. All right.
Can we start with what critical race theory actually is?
You gotta say it. You gotta say critical race theory. Like, there's no way in the lexicon of this country that people don't know it's CRT.
Right.
Critical
I'm saying let's put into perspective like what it really is.
No, and here's the I want us to have a conversation I'm glad that you there are part of this discussion, because this needs to be a very serious conversation in this respect. Because many people could be like, oh my God, this is crazy, this lady crazy. But people don't understand, especially if you're talking about Black people, if you're not Black and you marry someone that is Black and you produce a Black child, there is a responsibility on your shoulders as the parent of that child to make sure that your child understands who they are.
Which we can see that she does not. She doesn't even really want to acknowledge his Black side. So the Black D was good for her, but having the Black son, that seems to be an issue. But it wasn't an issue for her to lie down with a Black man and conceive a child, but she can't even use the term race. I'm not understanding. That's the first conversation that I want to have with her. What made it okay for you to lie down unprotected and have sex with a Black man, but you're operating from a racist point of view? If you watch that video, she does not seem to be proud to have a Black son. She does not seem like she's embracing his Blackness, that she even wants him to understand or know that his skin color does mean something. And then she doesn't even understand what critical race theory is, because if she ever took a moment to say, well, you know what? Let me see, what is critical race theory? In itself.
No,
that in itself. Exactly. She doesn't even know what it is herself. So you're upset that your child is learning that the institutions in America, i.e. our social justice system, education system, that they aren't steeped in racism. You can honestly say that. It's just like, wake up, lady. She's living in this bubble that she's created, or that she's been, I don't know, possibly raised in. But I'm just very curious as to how she even ended up with a Black man. I think that's the part that I'm kind of like.
I think it that's the $64,000 question, right? Like you don't like
Black people,
right? Like, you don't sound like you like Black people, let alone having a Black child.
Yeah.
All right, I want to bring some comments in, because
it was a fantasy of hers that she had in college or some shit.
Maybe, and maybe that's why it didn't work out. Maybe that's why she's a single mom at this point. I don't know.
It's weird.
I don't know. Let's start posting some comments, Keenan, because a lot of people want to check it in right now. Damon, I know my man Damon has something to say, boy. Damon, she didn't even know what to call it. That critical thing.
Right, Damon. I was like, what?
Oh, man.
She knew what to call it. She didn't want to say the word.
Right. All right, Oil King. Check this out. Oil King said, the boy just doesn't want to do his chores, and these white folks trying to use it against us.
Exactly. It's called finessing. That's what Black people call it. Like, let me DM you some black terminology so you can relate to your Black son.
Zamara, the Slayer.
That's Xiomara.
Thank you so much. Ziomara the Slayer, my son is mixed. I teach him he is black. His father tells him he is not, but that he is mixed as if there is a difference here in America. Now, that's why I said that we can have, let's have a very, very important conversation around this, because if you are in a relationship, and that's not even just have to be black and white. It could be, it can be
Asian
American and black people, Asian American and white people, Latino black people, Latino and white people. You know what I mean? Like, it can go in so many different ways, and it's like, you have to know, like, once a child gets into the picture, you have to make an effort to make that child understand, like, yo, you are this person. Because, dear, I think here's the problem I'm foreseeing, and you tell me if I'm wrong. Like this lady, Melissa Riley, your son is going to grow up in a bubble. He's going to think one way, and look, and you talk, and see, and this I think is so ironic. She talks about brainwashing of critical race theory. When you don't teach your son about being a black man, he's clearly a black boy. He's clearly a black boy. What are you doing?
Babe, she has an issue. She literally said he's finding strength in numbers. That I translated that as he's starting to hang around black people. And she
Which
doesn't
bothers
like
his
it.
mom.
It bothers his mom that he wants to hang around people who not only look like him, but can relate to the same struggles that he's going to face regardless of whether or not he has a black mom. And even we didn't get to see what he looks like, but I know biracial children who don't look biracial. And if we go to celebrities, J. Cole, if you look at J. Cole, you think he's just another light-skinned black man. You're not going to look at J. Cole and be like, oh, he has a white mom. You would look, even Shamar Moore, to me, I didn't, like, growing up, I didn't think of Shamar as like having a white mom. Shamar Moore was just light-skinned to me. You know what I'm saying? It was like, I mean, he's like my complexion and I'm not mixed. You know, both of my parents are black. So it's just like, as black people, we're so many different shades and so many different colors that, you know, I can understand the dad's perspective and him saying, you know, I want to teach our son that he is mixed, because 50% of him is what his dad is and the other 50% is what his mom is. But as the mother was saying, and as we just said, because black people are so many shades on the spectrum, you're classified, you're identified, you're profiled as being black.
That's it.
They don't care. When they look at your license, it doesn't say, my mom is white, my dad is black.
That's
so I was raised by my white mom.
That's it.
Not my black dad. No. I don't relate to my black side. No, this is not.
Hey, look.
This is not the Reconstruction period when black people are pretending to pass as white.
Let's think about one of the most famous children of biracial parents, President Obama.
Oh, for sure. For sure. The moment that he does something wrong,
he's black.
He's not even black. He's the N-word. He's the N-word.
He's the N-word. Let's go back to the comments. Tiana, she mad at her baby daddy.
Exactly.
Tiana, and you know what? And I mean, we can laugh at that, but I think that in the real sense of things, and Tiana, I think you're absolutely right. She might have some real
deep-seated
serious affairs of the heart.
Yep.
Because
did you see her response, her body, like her language when she was like, when they asked about the dad, he's not in the picture. Like, I get it, he's not in the picture, that sucks, but it was the way she said it in her body language that was like.
Well, because again, here's the thing too, dear. When we think about single mother homes, who's the first person that we think about?
Oh, a black woman.
So now here's a white woman having to carry that stigma
she done got by a black man too.
A single mother raising a black boy. Now it sounds like based on that interview, like she got full custody. I don't know what the dad is.
She made it sound like dad wasn't even in the picture.
Dad didn't even have no. So she said, "I'm teaching him everything."
Yeah. Now that could be, but we don't know what the other side is. The dad this may be a situation where dad's been fighting to be a part of the kid's life. I'm gonna be real. I do know situations like that where women are like, no, we're not together, and they just use the child as leverage, and it's crazy. I would never just be like, I want to put that all on the dad, because there are a lot of good dads out there who want to be good dads and aren't given the opportunity. So black men, I got y'all back.
No, I always got my brother's back. And here's the thing, though. The thing that I it's And I mean, look, this is just my school of thought, folks, and this ain't, whether you agree with it or not, we could talk about it. But the fact is, a woman can't just raise a black boy by herself expecting him to be a man. It's been done.
Mm-hmm.
We know it's been done. We can go down that road and we can have all the conversation about it. Yes, we know
But you
women
gotta add
raise black boys.
football coaches. You have to add in the mentors, the uncles.
Come on, man. Like,
the big
stop acting like the
cousins,
man in a boy's life
Mr.
is not
Larry.
needed.
They need a black man. That's why we
That boy need a black man.
That's why we had the conversation about the importance of having more black male teachers.
Facts.
So if they're not in the home, at least they might be getting it in the school. We've been, but black men, I just want to say real quick, we need you in the home. Or not even, and that's not to say if the relationship doesn't work, you got to stay in the home. But the child needs you on a day-to-day basis. I'm not talking about you just pop in once a month. Your child needs you. It takes two people to make a child. So there are two people needed to raise that child, whether you're in the home or not.
Yeah. JT Max said he's probably, speaking of the father, he's probably not in the picture because she keeps him out of the picture. That could be we don't know.
Very well could be.
He could be out of the picture. We don't know, right? I mean, that could be a situation. Sonia checked in and said, look, the mother is seeing how her son is breaking out of her bubble and beginning to see how his black side is being treated in America and questioning everything.
And honestly, like, yes, I think that maybe, and even in his way of handling what he's learning at school, clearly, I know his teacher is not teaching him that, oh, because you're black, when your mom tells you to do your chores, not to do it. That's not even what critical race theory is. That's not what he's being taught. This is him choosing this method to rebel. He's choosing to be rebellious and using, oh, well, I can't do this, mom, but maybe he's rebellious because, mom, you're not allowing him to learn about himself.
Yeah.
Maybe he's rebellious because you have him in a setting, constantly in a setting where he feels like he is the minority. Because let's be real, your son is the minority. When you take him out all your little country club friends, he's still going to be the minority. He's still going to have the feelings that he's feeling. And Bubble, he's about to go to high school. I don't care if you're white, black, whatever your race is. When your child starts to get around that 14-year-old mark, they are going to start branching out. I don't care if it's a two-parent household, whatever. That's the age when they start getting a lot more curious about a lot of things, and they may or may not discuss all those things with you, but they are going to try you. They're going to try their hand to see, what can I get away with? How's my parent going to respond? That's what children do. They test us. As a parent, how do you respond? Okay, bet. You don't want to do your chores? Guess what? I'm going to have to take your cell phone. That's how you handle that as a mom. Be a mom. Get some backbone.
Let's go back to the comments, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. I want to go to Michael Smith. Keenan, let's post Michael Smith's comment because I think this is a good one as well. The children are suffering from what is known as an identity crisis. Most biracial people in this country have that problem. I would agree.
Especially when they're not getting fed from both sides.
It is.
I think you don't have to go through that just because you're biracial. First of all, you don't have to go through an identity crisis because you're biracial, period. People go through identity crisis, especially, like I said, middle schoolers. I work in a middle school. That is the age where they are most susceptible. Can't even talk today. But they're the age that they're going through puberty. They're going through all these hormonal changes. What group do I fit in with? What friends do I fit in with? Who do I want to be? Who am I? They're asking themselves a lot more serious questions. Of course, they ask themselves those questions when they're younger, but as they're starting to go through that hormonal stage, that peak right before they get to high school, they're all going through an identity crisis. They're acting out because they're going through identity crisis. They're acting out because they want attention. There's so many different reasons why children act out. That's what his mother should be trying to figure out. Instead, she would rather use her own racism, right?
Which is crazy.
To take what he's learning at school and turn it into a negative.
And turn it into
because of the way that her son is using it.
And just to throw it out there, dear, the fact that she retained a lawyer.
Yeah, she's insane.
Like, you really spent some money to get somebody, and the lawyer tried to come across as being very lawyerish, right? Yeah. Where he says, well, they should not be the school is violating the standards and the rules because it's encouraging a certain level of identity. Look,
that is not even the sad part is that when educated people have come up with their own assumptions of what critical race theory is without actually learning about what critical race theory is. Critical race theory is so important. It's so important. It's important for all. First of all, we're always talking about how are we going to make change? How can we better these institutions? If you can't have real conversations about our institutions, how are we ever going to make change? Change can't just be made from the Black side, and change can't just be made from the white side. Change has to be made from all participating people. We have to learn these things. Our children, especially Black children, they do need to learn how to move in this country. They do need to learn how the financial institutions are going to treat them, how our judicial system is going to treat them, and so much more. Like, it's pure ignorance, and it's Fox News. And so for me, watching Fox News is like watching SNL. It's comedy, and it's just, but it's sad because it's dripped in people that are actually truly blindfolded. You know what I mean? Like, you guys are the people that are really living in denial. It's not everybody else. You know what I mean?
I mean, I agree with you. The sad part also about it being on Fox News is that it's real.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's real. Like, this is
very,
not
very
SNL.
real.
Like, this is actually
and
real.
look, Black people don't need to have any level of. Black people don't need to be educated about race in this country. We don't, in a sense.
No, but our children do.
Our children do. Here's what I'm saying, and just hear me out. I'm saying because every single day that we wake up,
oh, we're Black.
We have to by conditioning, by design, and some people would even go as far as say by DNA. We confront. We have to face race every day we look in the mirror. I'm a Black man. I'm a Black woman. I'm a Black boy. I'm a Black girl. Like, we carry that weight. Yeah. And for a long time, not only we just carry it, like as a child, you carry the weight, and it's not until you grow into your understanding that you can start to name what that weight is. But the weight is race. The weight is I'm Black. Yeah. So you carry that. White people don't wake up and say, hey, I'm white. Right. It's not the same. And then the reason I say that is because if y'all have never read the book by Robin DiAngelo called White Fragility, she talks about this in her book. It's a great book. It's one of the landmark books in terms of whiteness scholars. But she talks about that. She said, and this is a white woman, she said, white people don't have to think about their community.
No.
That's why, and again, she said this in the book. So if you say, oh, that's racism, it's in her book. She said that's why there is an individualistic view that white people have when it comes to racism. They say, well, I'm not racist.
Yep.
Because it's not in them.
That's the big thing.
They're in the majority.
Yeah, that's like the big reason that, you know, the rebuttal that white people have who oppose critical race theory. Well, I don't want it to be taught that we're racist. That's not us. Like, that's in the past. That happened before. They want to pretend that racism doesn't still exist, that institutions aren't still upholding the foundation and the fabric of racism. And that's the big issue. It's like, oh, I have a Black friend, and it's like, that's the first thing that you could say that's going to piss me off and make you think that you're racist. The moment that you hello, I'm not a racist, I have a Black friend, you're like, hold up, wait a minute. Having a Black friend does not make you, mean that you're not a racist. So I think that even confronting, like, what critical race theory is, what race is in this country, and what, like, the history of it, but then not even just the history, because so many of those foundations are still being upheld. Oh my gosh, what was it that we just talked about right here on the show? I think you were talking about the banks, Wells Fargo, and some of the other banks, and so many of the issues that Black people had in getting home loans. If we even talk about the wealth gap in this country, that all of that stuff is like a full circle that goes right back to racism. Yep. All of it. So how can you say that we shouldn't teach this when it's still impacting and affecting all of us today? And white people need to learn this stuff too, because they're the ones that are running these institutions. They're the ones who honestly can make a lot of the changes that we need to see happen. But if you are still so ignorant about it, if you want to still keep pretending that you and your ancestors and your offspring are not still benefiting from slavery and racism in this country, you are blind and you're a liar or just in denial. And I think a lot of us as Black people, we're sick of it. And that's why we keep pushing and fighting for critical race theory to not be removed from schools. Because Virginia, I thought that was a state that they were trying to really throw critical race theory out of the schools entirely, make it against the law. So the fact that it's even being taught in Virginia says that there are Black people there that are fighting for their story to be told, for their reality to be told and taught to the children who need it the most, because they're going to be the ones that grow up and impact our future.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Welcome you to the launch of the Mass Poor People's Low Wage Assembly and Moral March on Washington, D.C., June 18, 2022.
We are a new, unsettling force, and we are powerful. New, unsettling force, and we are here.
We're rising up to demonstrate the compelling power that we, poor and low-income people, have to reconstruct society from the bottom up.
And we need to do it with the loudest voices possible, the biggest actions possible.
Because we know that there is no scarcity in this land. The only scarcity is the moral will to do what's right.
Hold on, just a little while longer.
We are those with sub-minimum wage jobs who can't afford sky-high rent.
People with disabilities are the fastest growing minority group.
It's crazy to me that in 2021, it's still legal for workplaces to pay a sub-minimum wage to people with disabilities.
There are still so much trial and tribulations that we go through as Indigenous people. We can't get a decent wage to sustain ourselves, nor can we get adequate housing.
Veterans across this nation say enough is enough. We can't pat essential workers on the back on one day and then cut their health care the next day.
Health is a political choice.
What more do I need to do to prove that my voice is just as valuable as anyone else's?
There are still forces in denial that would try to slow walk our transition to a clean economy and a just future for us all.
We have an immoral system run by immoral people.
But together we walk, and we walk and we fight.
It's time for a change. Reconstruyamos esta gran nación.
See, we are people of resilience as we fight these interlocking injustices together.
When we work together, mobilize together, and rise together, we become a voice for the voiceless, and we become an agent of change in a time where great change is needed.
We need the third reconstruction to ensure that deaf people, people with disabilities, and all people can have the right to live and to thrive.
We know what they are doing, but the question is, what are we going to do? Reconstruction begins when we change our mentality and say it's time for you to get your foot off of my neck.
Justice is coming soon. Hey, do you believe that of today?
We want to talk a little bit about Black excellence in the kitchen. Now, you and I, we may know a couple of chefs or a couple of folks that are doing cuisine and culinary work professionally. But do you know that there's still a great disparity of black men and Black women in the kitchen? And so there's an effort to try to change that as Black chefs are making it their job to push and call for diversity in the kitchen, especially in the culinary arts. Here to give us a little bit more insight about not just that work, but about the work he is doing is Chef Rock Harper. And Chef Rock is going to talk to us a little bit about just some of the things that he's seeing in the kitchen and why it's important to celebrate Black cuisine. Chef Rock, thank you so much for joining us. How are you, dear brother?
Good to see you, brother Farajii. I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Did you cook anything today?
I cooked a little bit, man. I actually I had some crab cakes for breakfast. It's a little uncharacteristic, but I was feeling a little swaggy.
That sounds like a swaggy breakfast for a Monday.
You know, I just it was a rough weekend, bro. I'm telling you, I didn't get
I was gonna ask, hey Chef, like what now for Mother's Day?
Yes.
Did you go all out for the weekend?
We went way out. You know, Queen Mother's is my restaurant, and we focus on fried chicken. And we actually was a part of my dear brother Priest the Nomad, who's a rapper, released a video called "My Way Home," and he used myself and my mom in the restaurant as a backdrop, as a visual to support it. It was pretty dope. And so we did the fried chicken box with buttermilk biscuits and deviled eggs and a couple other goodies, some salted caramel chocolate chips and some potato salad. So we just wanted to take the pressure off of anyone that normally, you know, cooks the food for mom. And so many families, so many people came through, and it was a beautiful thing, but it was pretty rough.
All right, so let's talk about your journey in the kitchen, because I think you have a great story to highlight. Let's talk about that, but then let's also talk about, Chef, you know, there is still a disparity of having, you know, Black representation in the kitchen. You know, there's only a small number of Black chefs in the country still.
Yeah.
And it still seems to be, you know, it's just I would say one of the finer arts that a lot of people aren't exposed to, I guess. A lot of young people aren't exposed to. But let's start with your journey. How did you get to become a chef? What was the inspiration for that journey?
You know, I have a journey. I first wanted to be a comedian a long time ago. I grew up.
Are you serious?
I did, brother. And look, I might break into the stage any day now.
Wait a minute, you cooking and telling jokes?
Well, I might. That might be the show right there.
Are you married? Because I mean, that's a shoe-in. You cooking and telling jokes, a sister.
Right. You know, that's something we need to pitch right there. But I used to love telling jokes and watching great comedians. So I love people. I love entertainment, you know. And when I was in 8th grade, I took a home ec class, and that was my first foray into like food. And had this lovely woman. Her name was Mrs. Hill. Shouts to Mrs. Hill. And we made a lasagna. And that was sort of the first moment I realized that was fancy to me at the time, that I could make something. And actually, my mother told me later that people would pay me to make it. I found out it was a career. Ever since that moment, that sort of spurred my chef journey. And I went on to school, and I just loved it. You know, just watching my mother and my grandmother entertain through food. That really, you know, food it's everywhere, so it can change an event. Like you see it. It can change. You can influence moods, and it really supports what's going on. It's a wedding or a funeral. It doesn't really matter. The food has to be there, and if it's good, it's going to change everything. So I really love the people aspect of the culinary art.
So it sounds like it's about changing the mood, bringing people together, and it really, I mean, there has to be a love there. Because I truly believe in this old idea that if you cooking my food, you better like me at least, because I'm gonna be able to taste it.
Yeah, you got to love it. To be in this business, you have to love it. Yeah, it is not an easy business. It's not for the weak, if I can say that. And but you do have to. I'm a curious person as well. So when I say I love people, I'm curious about the herbs, like the farmer that grew the herbs or where they came. I'm curious about the driver that brought them to me. And also what they can do, what was their intention when the seed was planted, and what they can do in the food and what you need, right? Depending upon when customers come into the restaurant, and they ask, well, what's good here? Well, that depends on what you're looking for, and that depends on what you need in this moment. So all of those aspects, you know, from the chef, from the whoever we got the product from, to the customer that we're serving, those are all people, and the food is just an opportunity for me to connect with those people. So that's the way I look at my craft. I don't know if that's the way my grandmother did it or that's my mother does it, but that's, you know, I just love people, and we're all connected, and I can't do it without them. None of those people, none of this dish can't make it here without those people I just laid out. So that's what's really important to me, is finding out how I can, you know, build up community, love on folks, and serve smiles through the food.
I want to bring back my culture crew, Jules P, B Fly, as we talk to Chef Rock Harper. Chef Rock is an entrepreneur. He's a great talent in the kitchen, and he's doing his part to diversify the kitchen as well. Hey, Chef, talk to us a little bit about, brother, you know, why, looking at, we showing you a couple of photos, you know, just a little bit of the photos.
Yeah.
Look at that. Look at that, Chef.
That's my man,
smiling.
Chef.
Look at that
right there. That's right.
What's that, Chef?
That's the world famous duck fat fried chicken sandwich.
What's it called?
Duck fat fried chicken sandwich.
Duck fat fried chicken sandwich.
Yes. So Queen Mother's is we're a fried chicken sandwich place, and those are the tenders that you see right there. It's crispy. It's a little bit of influence from my grandmother to my mother, but you know, I put my little chef touches on it, on a fresh brioche bun, what I call mother sauce, some pickles, and just a lot of love.
Hey man, that looks too good right now. I'm trying to forget about this interview and just move forward with the food.
Listen, I worked there, and I'm drooling right now. Right? You know, that's how you know I know it's good. I ain't fronting. I'm sitting here getting like, man, I should have eaten something before I came on this interview.
Man, you had crabs this morning, Chef, so you should be good. But talk to us a little bit. Why aren't we seeing more black faces in the kitchen?
You know, I asked the same question to someone who is a respected, what I call her a scholar in this industry, and she hit me with an answer that kind of surprised me, because I think that we as black people got away from this industry over the past generation or two. She seems to think that we're in it and maybe doing it a bit differently. So I think that the answer to that is nuanced, but from those two perspectives, a little bit of both. I think that when, you know, we are an ever evolving and smart people, right? And restaurant work, right? So-called servant work, there's a stigma attached to that, right? When you're serving people, the service industry, right? When I mean servant, like I am a servant of the people. So that's when you're a hospitality business, that's your role, is to serve others. And with us, I believe that one of the pieces that over the past couple of generations is that to be a servant has maybe been tied to something that, you know, a couple hundred years ago, right? Tied to being enslaved, or something that we did when we couldn't do other things, when we couldn't in the corporate space. So I think that maybe has helped usher us out and into other industries. And with that, you don't get paid a lot of money in this business, right? Entry level. It's not like you go to culinary school and you get these fabulous degrees and you come out making six figures or close to it, or your trajectory is that you'll be making six figures and it's not like medical school or some of these other engineering schools. It's not like that. You spend a lot of money on education, and you don't make a lot of money. You make a minimum wage job, and hopefully, if you're good enough, you can make a lot of money eventually, but right now not. And so that combined with, I think that it's just the pay, and also when we talk about like farming, those sorts of things that were like old school, we don't want to do that anymore. We really forgot the importance of being cornerstones in our community, expressing ourselves through food. But I think it's to my sister's point, who told me this, I think it's coming back in a different sort of way. We're expressing ourselves as entrepreneurs, so we might not be in other people's restaurants, but I think that Black people are really expressing themselves to their own entrepreneurial efforts.
I definitely will. And Chef, my man, Brother King Lee, is checking in online. He was like, "Where's your restaurant at?" because I know people are going to want to check you out. But you can go ahead and get that information. We'll once again put it out there again at the end of the conversation. But where are you located?
Appreciate that, Brother King Lee. We are in Arlington, Virginia. It's Queen Mother's Restaurant. The website is queenmothercooks.com in Arlington, Virginia.
There it is. Hey, Jules and B, what do you think about the fact that and then I'm starting with you, B. You know, this is another art, right? Like this is not, some people tend to not even consider to be culinary work to be artist work. But I beg to differ on this, B. I think being a chef, being in the kitchen, you got to be an artist. There's an art form to it. I mean, yes, you are taught, you are trained like any other artist, but then that creativity, that inspiration, all of that plays into the kitchen. And I'm going to ask the same question that I asked Chef. I mean, how do we get the next generation to get excited about being in the kitchen? I mean, we all eat, so it's not like, you know, you're going to be out of work.
You know, I think there's several overlaying components here, because, you know, in the home place, there's this stigma about only women being in the kitchen, right? And waiting for the more feminine energy to prepare your meal. But then in the work environment, right, there are more, the patriarchy is more so accepted when it comes to the culinary arts. All right. So men are paid more to cook professionally, whereas women are still in that domestic realm at home trying to figure it out. So to what Chef is saying, there are several Black levels of evolution that kind of take us out of our basic needs, you know? So it's like, because we are now, quote unquote, integrated into society and able to use the fuller facets of our minds, we don't necessarily use our hands, and we frown upon using our hands, you know? But what we learned in COVID is when you actually participate in growing seeds, and when you actually take those seeds and turn them into fruits and vegetables, and there's this marriage that you're able to have with your food, which brings us back to our grandmothers and our grandfathers and the way they participated with food when they didn't have other options, you know? And so it's in our advancement, we lose certain core skills because now we have the money to contract that out. Now we have the money to order drive-in and cook faster meals because we would rather be exhausting our minds than our bodies. And as a result, we have high blood pressure and dying of heart disease and diabetes, and I can go on with the foodborne illnesses, you know, that can be curbed if we actually go back into the kitchen on a professional level, you know? And so the academia world has done something to the industry, to the culinary arts, that has made it to where it's something to, you don't fantasize about it while you are Black and figuring your life out. You know what I'm saying? Your parents aren't encouraging you to go and cook for someone, because cooking for Black people in the world is a trauma response. Like what we navigate emotionally when it comes to serving in America, like Chef was talking about, it's a trauma response because we still haven't been repaired, we still haven't been acknowledged, and we still haven't even been thanked for our service continually, you know? So it's a mess. It's a lot of layers.
I see that. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
But at the end of the day, we cook and we still do and we handle it the same way a dope boy would. We're hand to hand. So I know plenty of Black chefs that don't have an actual license, but feed the community every day on a regular basis and make that bread. You know, do they pay their taxes? Are they upstanding citizens with their businesses? Possibly not. And so as a result, they don't get counted. We don't get counted for a lot of the work we do.
Chef B is bringing up a lot of great points. Can you speak to that? Can you speak to the fact that men, the disparity of pay? Can you speak to the fact that, we know that for our people, service has been ingrained in us because of our history and our condition.
Yeah.
And that some people may run from that because of that history. Can you speak to those things?
I almost jumped out of my seat when you were, but I got to stay in my spot so the producers don't yell at me. But you were preaching this. Listen, a couple of things. If you look at the magazines and the awards and who gets the restaurants 2 years out of culinary school, it's white guys, right? It's white guys with tattoos, or maybe not, right? And this is typical of America, that the pay disparity, especially for Black women in kitchens, is no different than what we see across the country in other industries. And it's not equal to skill or access to even after education, right? So that's a deterring fact. That's a deterrent, right? That's going to turn somebody away. If I've been doing this for 15 years and I see a rookie come up who's less talented than I, get a $2 or $3 million restaurant. So I think that she's onto something there. What I want to point out is that when we look at our ancestors, when we look at our elders, when we just look at our culture, one of the things that I believe we always have to ask ourselves, right, is how does this help us? How does this free us? How does this connect to our history? So what was Mr. Johnson doing or Mr. Harris doing with the cafe on the corner in the neighborhood 70 years ago? Were they trying to be on the cover of somebody's magazine or, on someone's TV show? There's nothing wrong with that. But cornerstones of the community, they had to purchase that product from the local farmer, usually, right? They had to serve their people that couldn't get served anywhere else. Sometimes they made loans, they gave jobs, they employed people. It was a community, right? We had these bouncing communities, and the food was a part of it. Everybody's not going to be a chef. So even to the bro you might know that's hustling plates out of his kitchen, make your money, but don't let an industry stop you from expressing yourself creatively and understand what sustained us and what got us here. At Queen Mother's, we're trying to build community. Yes, I think I have the best chicken sandwich, and yes, people have written, and I'm so grateful that the press comes in my restaurant and writes about it. I'm grateful for all of that. But the highest thing for us, for me, is building community and pushing out, being honoring culture and serving smiles. That's the highest thing. So once we center that, and whatever that is, I'm not saying it needs to be the same thing for all Black people in the kitchen, but once you try to enter in a system that wants to remold and just absorb you and make you look like a certain way, once you try to enter that system, you're not going to sort of liberate yourself within that system. It's designed to do a certain thing. And that's fine. That is what it is. But what I want to encourage all Black people that get into kitchens or restaurants or food is to do you, to figure out a way, like the brother you mentioned, to figure out a way how to do you, and pay. I know he might not be paying, but pay your taxes too. Get an LLC, all that shit, and
Oops.
But I understand what he's doing. You got to do what you got to do, but eventually pay them people. They coming for you.
Legitimize yourself. And you know what? And I'm glad that you mentioned B and Chef. I'm both glad that you mentioned it, because that's how Black folks work. We've been working under like this underground economy for so long that even when we become professional, we still go back to the underground, which is like mentally conditioned. Like, you got a whole chef, you've been taught and trained and exposed to people. Then you're like, yeah, man, I just saw my dinners from the back of my trunk. And it's like, bruh, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah,
all right, Jules, what's your question and your thoughts for Chef Harper?
Just a couple thoughts. One, I don't even eat fried foods, but those pictures, I will definitely come down and give it a try. I'm not gonna say in front. Like, I kind of got a little more. I mean, maybe because I'm hungry, they look good like that. Those dishes look good. I mean, I'm gonna come down definitely for sure. Take that ride down. But also just to focus on something that you stated when you were talking earlier. One, I always relate chefs as an art. And I relate art the same way I do music. It's a creative. So it's a passion for it. So it's like, what do I feel like I would want to do that I wouldn't mind if I didn't get paid for, but I'm not passionate about doing it. That's what I take into my art about creating music or writing music. So I feel like it's the same thing with chefs. I feel like that's also the same thing in the Black community when it comes to eating. We love food. We have to eat. A lot of times I can look at a base of a recipe, but I tie my own creativity into it because I'm such a picky eater. I can't put everything that they want inside each of these ingredients and recipes inside my actual dish. I have to take a lot of things out and substitute, so that gives me my creativity. So the one thing that I want to say based off what you were talking about earlier is when you're doing that with your restaurant, which I'm hearing, it's like you said something that stuck out to me is creating that relationship. I hate when I go into restaurants when it's just a business, when it's just you walk in, you get seated, you get served, and then that's it. I love the restaurants that create an atmosphere where you feel like family. How you're talking about 70 years ago when they started those businesses, when the Uncle Charles and all them was on the corner, Mr. Harris were having that restaurant, you felt like family. They brought you in as a guest. You felt like family. They treated you good. I only get that from Black restaurants. I don't get it from chain restaurants. You get friendly things when you go out, like when I travel to like Vegas. I mean, you get a lot of friendly people and things like that work in those places. But I'm talking about that homegrown feeling I only get from Black restaurants. And that's what I want to commend you for, because when you said that, that struck a light with me. I'm like, yeah, he's definitely got it. Chef Rock is on it. That's what you create, that family bond. You bring him in, like, hey, you're a part of my family. This is what this is. Try this food. Let's talk. Let's have a good time. And let's have this understanding of, hey, this is the plight that I had to work to get to this stage in life. You can do the same thing as well, whatever your passion is, whatever you want to do. But you are part of my family, and I'm welcoming you into this.
Yeah, listen, my friend Priest to Nomad, who released the song My Way Home, he's been rapping for 30 years. And rap is an art, right? Hip hop, I can put words together just to match, right? I can't rap. You know what I mean? Like, ain't nobody by my single. I don't care how long. I can take a verse from Biggie for 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago, and study it for 5 years. I guarantee, as Denzel would say, I guarantee it's nobody's checking for my verse. It's an art. They're poets, right? They're music. There's an art to that. So and there's an art to, I believe, to hospitality, to get into your second point. So what is the art, right? At Queen Mother's, you can always come home is the tag. That's I believe that. I don't even say, it's not even a motto. You can always come home. So when you come into my shop, and this is what is in the culture, I'm behind the counter. See, we see one another differently. And this is what many cultures have. It's not just us, right? All cultures, I would dare to say. But they see and they hear different things. I had a brother come in the other day. He was the credit card machine wasn't working, and he was cussing. He was like, "Man, this daggone thing won't work. I don't know why." And the lady that was working with me, she was all tense, and she was like, "Oh, okay, I'm sorry." So I said, "Bruh, I'm gonna get it right, and you're right. I apologize." I said, "Just like this, I apologize, man. I don't know what's going on with Wi-Fi, but you ain't gotta do all that cussing, bruh." My man looked at me. He said, "Yeah, you're right. My fault, brother. My fault." So here's the point. Maybe that was scary to her, and it was profane. He was profane, but what I understood was that who's on the other. That's just the way he talked. There was a rhythm to the way he was talking. So that's just one example of, as someone in this business, hospitality is an art, and you have to sort of gauge everything and just see and know who to call what or try. We don't always get it right, but we want to treat everyone like they're always welcome. And that helps when this is a shout to my other Black restaurateurs or Black business owners. Don't shed your people out. Understand your people, know your people. Don't be quick to call your folks out on social media. We all different. So when, we got to be able to talk to one another and make, like you said, make it feel like home when you come in. And I'm glad that you have that experience in Black businesses around the country.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Chef Rock Harper, the founder and the owner of Queen Mother's Restaurant right there in Arlington, Virginia. Check that out, folks. And Chef is a finalist. His restaurant is a finalist for the 2022 the Rammies. You could still continue to vote. Hey, Chef, I just placed my vote. I ain't even go to the restaurant. I just like you, Chef. So I'm going to just vote just because I like you.
You can do it every day. I appreciate that.
Hey,
thank you.
But the food looks fantastic. I got to come through and bring the family.
Please.
And show our support. But folks, if you are in the Arlington, Virginia, DC area, and you're looking for a great place, a Black-owned business, a great place to get a great meal, make sure y'all check out Queen Mother's restaurant right there in Arlington, Virginia. And my man, Chef Rock Harris, will host you. I mean, man, can we get like the culture discount?
Listen, you got 100%, bro. 100%.
Getting like typical Black people be like, yeah, support Black businesses. Can I get a discount?
I'll say go straight into the discount.
Be like, damn, man. I thought
That's
you
part of
had
the
me.
language. That's part of the language. That's how we
my
do it.
prices already.
I got you. Holler me off air though. You know we might be on the phone.
No, man, I ain't paying no discount. No, it was just a joke. I don't want no discount. That money needs to go back to you, brother, and to your team and to the folks there, Queen Mothers, and making sure that we show you full support. So no discount. Don't ask that man for no discount or no damn sandwich. Like you don't ask it from McDonald's. You don't ask it from Arby's.
You could try. You don't ask it from Apple. You could try if you want.
You ask from Gucci.
Yeah. Right. You don't ask it for Gucci. Yeah. You walking up in there with Juke, walking up in there with a Gucci belt, talking about, hey man, can I get a discount on this chicken sandwich? No, Negro. No.
Whip him with the belt.
No, you can't.
Hey, stop asking.
Take off the belt first. Then we talking.
Said pawn your belt, you can get 2 sandwiches.
What I can do is call you. I'm gonna call you sir and address you like the wonderful human being or ma'am that it is. I'm not gonna put you out and create all these ghost rules where I can't serve you like some of these other restaurants. I don't care if you got on leggings or whatever. I might not give you the discount, not you, I know, but when you come in with your hat to the back or your do-rag on and your flops, right? This is what I'm saying, how we have to see our people. You still a loving human being that is coming to my business, and I'm grateful for you. So I'm gonna treat you the same way.
Hey, look, hey, Chef, look, real talk, you're doing an excellent job.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Excellent job. And we love and appreciate you, man. You're so good for the culture. Continue to do the great work. But again, congratulations on all of your success and just representing so well for us in the kitchen, brother. Black excellence personified, Chef Rock Harper. Chef, we got to bring you back on and talk about some other things happening in the kitchen. But I just wanted to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to my audience here on The Culture. And we'll certainly bring you back on, brother.
Man, love the network. Love what you're doing, brother. You got one of the hottest shows out. So thank you so much for having me on.
I appreciate that. Chef Rock Harper, folks. Make sure you also follow him on social media. And again, the restaurant is called Queen Mother's in Arlington, Virginia. Folks, Juneteenth is coming soon, and many folks across the country are preparing activities and ways to acknowledge the end of slavery, the legal end of slavery. And so it leaves open the door, who can do what? Well, in Little Rock, Arkansas, there was a group of folks that decided to show their support, I guess, for Juneteenth by hosting a celebration that they call a soul food market. Take a look at this, folks. A Juneteenth soul food festival and market being hosted and featured hosts by Rex Nelson, Heather Baker, and David Bazell at the War Memorial Stadium in Little Rock, Arkansas. Now, here's the thing. Here's the thing about this. We can go and Keena, keep this. I want you to keep this post on, or keep this post up for me, please, brother. We can go into the conversation about what white people can't do and what black people should be doing and all of that. And when this was posted on Twitter, of course, Black Twitter went crazy because the conversation was about gentrification of black holidays. But for me, it opens up the conversation from a different angle. Instead of us getting upset, if there were an opportunity for white people and other people to celebrate black holidays, should they be given the space to do that? That's my big question. Thank you so much, Keenan. That's my question. Should they be given space to do that? And Shaquaya, I want to get your take on this because Black Twitter was not happy. But I know, I get it. And people are like, oh, soul food. Like one of the criticism of this is like, you're going to host a Juneteenth event, an event that talks about the end of slavery. And the best way you can celebrate it is to do it in a market style where Black folks were sold as slaves. Okay, you missed the mark on that. Then it's like, oh, you're going to do a Juneteenth event that talks about Black people and Black history, but soul food, but you don't have any Black faces to be a part of that celebration. So I'm not going to get into that because that's an easy conversation to get to, right? That's like, oh man, look at crazy white people. Oh, okay. That's too easy. I'm not going to get into that. But I think that we should get into the discussion that if you have well-meaning white people who have good intentions, well-meaning Latino people that may have good intentions, or Asian people that say, hey, you know what? I think there should be a Juneteenth event in my town or in my city. Do we have the right? And I'm saying we as Black folk, do we have the right to say, no, you can't host that? Because there's no Juneteenth National Committee. There's no Black group that owns the rights to the celebration of Juneteenth. So if somebody outside of the Black community wants to do something to show that they are, quote unquote, an alignment with this idea of Juneteenth being celebrated, should they?
I think they should. And Farajii, I have to apologize because my Cocker Spaniel Cookie wants to get in on the conversation.
Oh, so no. Tell Cookie you need to chill out.
Jumping in.
That's all good.
Jumping in. So, the commemoration of the end of slavery, the formal end of slavery, not that which was implied through the passing of the Emancipation Proclamation, is rightfully, and as we discussed before, and it possibly becoming an observed holiday that you can receive a paid leave from your job for, should respectfully be celebrated by anybody who is inclined to take up the celebration. Now, though there is not an organizing committee, or there will never be a referendum upon which anybody can, go to refer to in terms of what is the proper way to celebrate it, and perhaps that needs to be created. But because of the open-ended nature of how anything can be celebrated in this country, I do think it is incumbent upon well-meaning white folk who would like to celebrate Juneteenth to confer with any respectful and or well-positioned arms, that I'll say organizations or businesses, that they would, they should be inclined to want to partner with people of color for whatever it is that, and however it is they seek to celebrate. When I look at that flyer, I'm not immediately opposed and or offended by the idea of a soul food market, but the issue that, as you already regarded, and people will take resonance, I'm sure Black Twitter has taken resonance upon, is seeing white faces, is knowing that the concept of soul food itself was born out of the establishment of slavery, in that people had to make something out of nothing and made it good. Right? We made it well, and therefore I question: are the vendors Black-owned businesses? Are there Black organizers of this event? Are there? And if it's not, and it's just the commemoration of the end of slavery, and they want to celebrate with soul food and have a marketplace with any type of business not particularly Black-owned, I question then who is going, like, what Black people are going to go into this space and challenge that? Because it's one thing to be offended and just have a lot of discussion or rabble-rouse online about, but how are we holding people accountable, and how are we doing that in a congenial sense of wanting to actually see progress made, not just to create, not just out of contention, not wanting to stoke issue with things just to have divisiveness. But how are we gonna learn these folks? You know how older Black people be like, let me learn you something. How are we gonna learn these folks something, right? What is going to be the process by which we hold people accountable, and how do we assert our and advocate for how it is we want this holiday to be celebrated? You know, if let me take another. You used St. Patrick's Day the other day, so I'll use this example. If Black people decided that they wanted to have an all-out go for green cookout on St. Patrick's Day, and we celebrated by not, acknowledging any aspect of Irish culture, but we just invoked what we wanted, who could say anything to us, right? They could say something to anybody who is Irish, who's affiliated with anyone who'd be a part of that celebration, could say something, but do the participants willingly have to change what it is they're going to do? No. So it just is a matter of constantly informing that which we want to be the culture and that which we want to be synonymous with this celebration. We have the opportunity to consecrate that in our advocacy, in our outreach, rather than just rabble-rousing online. It's real funny. I love it. I love it when Black Twitter gets up in arms, but let's really talk about what needs to be done so that we don't see this and repeat, and therefore, can kind of lessen the blow when we.
And see, that's the place that I'm at, Shaquia. That's the place that I'm at. I'm at this place it's interesting, it's funny, it's good fodder for social media. Look at this, they crazy and all that. But personally, I'm not moved by that.
Yeah.
I'm not moved by, us making mockery.
Right.
On both sides, whether it's Black folks or white people. I'm not moved by that. What I'm moved by is just the fact that, okay, if we're going to be in a progressive place in this country, then guess what? White people are going to have to be a part of the conversation. And I know that people have said, well, we could do for ourselves. And that's true. That's true. But if somebody has violated you, and I'm just saying on a personal level, somebody has violated you, do you just say to yourself, they violated me, not put any responsibility on the person that has violated you to make amends for the violation? So you completely remove them from the equation of trying to do right by you. And you just say, well, they violated me, but I ain't going to bring them into the conversation. So therefore,
it's childish.
I'm going to just let it go. Oh, I'm going to forgive myself for being violated.
Null. It's such a null attitude.
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. Like if we're talking about having very real conversations, and you said this, and I mean having very real conversations. I'm not, because we make mockery of race relations, right? But then at the same time, when things don't go according to the way Black folks want to go, now we up in arms and we emotional.
Right.
I'm tired of doing that.
No, absolutely.
I'm trying to get to a place that's like, okay, y'all want to do a Juneteenth?
Yeah, I'm gonna pull up. I'm gonna pull up.
Come on, pull up.
I'm gonna pull up.
Now, are you going to be serious about it?
I will pull up, and I'm not pulling up with a group of my homies to protest and just
whip your ass. I'm not doing that.
We're not. That is, see, I think that, which I think sometimes we don't talk about enough as a community aloud, and especially on platforms like this, which we're gifted and have the opportunity to do. Thank you, Roland. We are oftentimes reinforcing the divisiveness, right? And that we're not addressing it with a certain level of truth that can be received, or therefore we're not conveying and keeping on with, I think that we have historically, maybe at times when there are situations like this, cultural events like this, there may be an approach where we're trying to come in respectful, polite, strategic, tactful. But then on the other side of that, there is the up in arms, right? Like you said, it's the raucous. So I do not always see the levied effort to consistently chomp down these issues. I see more frustration and respectful to that which we experience all the time, grievances on so many different levels, disrespect on so many different levels as it pertains to our identity, our culture, our history. You know, I understand the frustration that boils out, but in a situation like this, like literally in this example with this Little Rock, Arkansas Juneteenth Soul Food Festival and Market, it's nothing to pull up and say, we heard about this event and we wanted to see how it was done. Can we speak to the organizing committee or chairperson? And then you can have a sound conversation about what informed the event, who was involved, who was the targeted audience, what exactly is the desired outcome of the event. If it's determined that it's only supposed to be, you know, opportunity for businesses to make money or to raise their visibility in terms of the restaurants that are serving in this festival and market, then that can be understood. But if there's another historical, cultural, you know, if there's another desired outcome that's supposed to impact culture, then that can be discussed and partnership can happen. I've seen it. Oftentimes, let me not even say oftentimes, sometimes white people just do things to do things. They're not trying to offend. And therefore, we have to, you know, kind of slip in and say, hey, what's going on? What exactly is the intent of this? And when we can reason and find whether it is intent to, you know, respect or regard that which is related to us and our history and our culture, then we can, you know, slide in what it is that we intend. If we recognize that there is intended disrespect or disregard, then we can cause all the noise we want.
I mean, I get it. And if this is supposed to be an ally moment, Chiquay, you know what I mean? Like, if you want to be an ally to the struggle, to the movement of liberation that have been impacting Black and brown communities, particularly Black communities, for hundreds of years, if you want to be an ally to that, it requires some very strategic partnership. It requires some openness. I mean, there are a number of things that has to happen. It can't just be, I'm going to take over the event, or I'm going to just take over the event. But here's on our side. On our side, we haven't codified any group to serve as the group or the coalition of groups to look at it. We still go back and forth about Kwanzaa. You know what I'm saying? Now we got Juneteenth. And there hasn't been any particular for Kwanzaa, there has been what you should be doing for the 7 days and everything. And there's still room for your family, you and your family to add your spin on it. But for Juneteenth, and we talked about this, we haven't codified what should be done. Now, if that comes from a Black organization to say, hey, look, as we celebrate this, let's do this. Let's reflect. Let's have story time. Let's go do this. Like, if certain things are codified, then that might be a different thing. But we can't get mad at anybody who wants to take a federal holiday and run with it the way they want to run with it, because we haven't concretized, we haven't codified how we want that holiday to be celebrated, right? And I know it might sound weird because you normally don't ask people. Like, when it comes down to the Chinese New Year, right? You don't just dress up in any type of garment and be like, I'm celebrating the Chinese New Year. You look it up. What do you do for the Chinese New Year? What is supposed to happen? Same thing for any other, cultural or ethnic holiday. So, I mean, I just think that instead of using this as an opportunity to make fun of, this can be an opportunity for us to say, okay, fine. You want to celebrate Juneteenth? You serious about it?
Right.
We're going to have this celebration. We're going to work together to celebrate, but then some other stuff has to come afterwards. And that's why I think it's the missed opportunity. That's why sometimes when it comes down to Black Twitter, I just be like, come on, yo.
They just want to be mad.
Stop playing.
Folks just want to be mad, Yeah,
You would just want to put people on blast. And
and it
personally,
makes for
I'm too
good
old for
comedy.
that.
It makes
Tired
for
of
a
that
good
shit.
laugh. It makes for a good laugh in the moment. It makes for good
Yeah.
follow
Like, look at this, look at that. I mean, look,
Yeah,
race
it
relations
makes
in
for
this
good
country.
impressions. Yeah,
Come
it
on.
makes
And
for good
Square,
social
you and I
media
know
impressions.
race relations in this country is so dire. We're
Mhm.
at such a critical point. We don't have, we shouldn't be making mockery or laughing at any of this stuff. We shouldn't be doing it. At the end of the day, because guess what? Race relations, the relationship between black and white in this country is so corrupted, so tainted, that we all are suffering from it, both black and white people. We have yet to really have, and we're getting, I truly believe we're getting there, but we in 2022 don't need to continue to make fun of the dysfunctional relationship between these two groups of people.
Correct.
We just don't have the liberty, we don't have the time to make fun of that stuff.
Absolutely correct. You're
We
right.
just don't have it.
Right. Because the impending feeling of a race war was very real.
Very real.
Between 2016 and 2020. Right?
It's the race
and
war.
It still is. And it
The
still is.
ongoing legislative and policy war that is being waged on black people in this country, right? The cultural war that is being waged on black people by white people in this country. We can't make mockery of this stuff,
And
man. This
for
stuff is
whatever
stupid.
reason, white
And
people
we
feel like
pass
there's a
this
cultural
bullshit
war
to our children.
on them. Mm-hmm.
I don't care about who put how you prepare potato salad. I don't. That's how you do it, man. I'm looking at the bigger picture.
I agree.
My son going to have to grow up in a world where, once again, white supremacy is the order of the day.
Or that in that there just is so much divisiveness that there's racial supremacy across the spectrum.
Right.
And there's not this tempered agreement, understanding, and embrace of full equity.
Right. Right. Folks, imagine this. A friend of yours, or really a colleague, has invited you to her wedding. Now, you know this colleague because you guys have, work in the same circles. You are a business owner. She's a business owner. And, you like her. You trust her. And when she invites you to the wedding, you feel honored. You feel happy. You feel like, you know what? This is not just a business relationship, but this is also leaning and working toward a personal relationship. You get to the wedding, and guess what? The wedding is beautiful. It's on the outskirts of Orlando, Florida. You're seeing the water. It's a beautiful day. The sun is shining. Everything seems picturesque. The spirit of everyone there is high. People are excited. Your friend is the bride of this wedding. And she is absolutely gorgeous. Everything is laid out. You can tell that money has been spent. All the details have been considered. So once the proceedings go forward, you're just looking forward to having a great time. The nuptials are said, the kisses has already happened, and guess what? It is time to have fun. So all of these things are happening, and you're thinking to yourself, what a great wedding. What a beautiful expression of the union of my friend and her husband. Where is the food? That's what you're thinking next. Where is the food? So when it finally comes down for the food to be served, it looks delicious. The perfect type of food for a perfect day. You have bread, you have pasta, You have all of the trimmings of some great food. And in a matter of moments, everything changes. People, even though there's a DJ playing music, even though the weather is nice, the venue is laid out beautifully, people eat a couple of bites of the food and they just sit there. No one's on the dance floor. No one's snapping their fingers or tapping their feet. They just sit there after eating a few bites of food. And then you feel it. Your mind takes you into a place that you never thought you would be. Essentially, you're high. This is just the situation that happened to one woman who was invited to her friend's wedding. She was given the opportunity to be a part of this beautiful union. And then when the food came out, she got high. 60 to 70 people got high at a wedding that happened back in February. And it is now just being discussed. And it's not just a typical high. Whatever the food was laced with, the cannabis that was used to be in the food takes people over. Men, women, elderly, and there were even some children that were present at the wedding, but they're still trying to figure out if children took in the food. This is the scenario, folks. I want to bring back Culture crew member Shaquaya McKenzie as we talk about the unfortunate, crazy circumstances of one lady by the name of Miranda Katie, 38 years old, as she attended this wedding on February the 19th outside of Orlando, Florida, where guests fell ill soon after eating a dinner of salad, pasta, and lasagna that had been cooked with marijuana. What? Like, Shaquaya, part of me, when I was trying to figure out whether we should have a discussion about this story, I was like, Farajii, what do you want this story to be? What should the conversation be? And I said, okay, let's have a conversation about what should be the punishment. Mm-hmm. And can you, here's what I'm posing, folks. How do you trust after you've been violated like this? This is a woman, Miranda Katie. This is what she said about her experience of going to her friend's wedding. And her friend, and check this out, folks. The fact that the food was laced with marijuana, the bride knew. And she conspired with the caterer. All these folks at the wedding, this was the wedding of a white woman. And she conspired with the caterer, who was a black woman, to lace the food with marijuana. Keenan, can we put up what Miranda Katie said? She said, quote, we're all at events and gatherings regularly talking about her relationship with the bride. She said, crossing paths monthly, quarterly is a regular thing in this town. The bride has a great energy and vivacious personality. It was pretty traumatic, emotionally traumatic. She said, I'm the type of person to walk into a room and everyone's my friend. To be violated this way from someone you like and trust is really hurtful. I didn't have an option or say. Even if people avoided things like the olive oil, it was still in the bread, in the pasta. Shaquaya,
there are a few things.
What the hell would you do?
There's a few things I'm taking apart, and I'm just going to give it to you as it's coming to my head. If it was this potent, nobody tasted it, that's one. Two, back up for a second. Talking about punishment and consequences. If the bride requested this order from the caterer, I do not think the caterer should be held responsible. Though I understand the statute of tampering with a federal one scheduled drug carries up to a maximum of 30 years in prison. It doesn't matter who did it, who commissioned who to do it, who paid who to do it. It was done by the Black woman. So I hope when people hear me, they're not thinking that I'm petitioning a consequence for the caterer because she's Black. I am just thinking of the conditional responsibility that lays at the feet of those who invited the guest to have this meal and have this experience, which is interesting for me. The bride was arrested, but not the husband. So that indicates that the bride conspired in her mind. She conspired in her mind that this was an element of her wedding that she wanted, and albeit for her personal, whatever her personal inventory was in terms of why she wanted it, whether she thought people would chill, whether she thought it would be a good joke, it was completely insensitive to think or consider those who have, elderly, those who have to take medication. Hopefully the children didn't digest the weed-laced food, but it's just unfortunate that something that otherwise, I think if you put it online, it's just a running joke because weed, in the sense that it's so culturally acceptable.
Right.
There's this idea that there's no big deal, but when you smoke weed versus when you ingest weed, and depending on the type of weed it is, it can be a very extreme experience. People, weed does alter your heart rate. There can be, depending on the strain of weed, there can be hallucinogens, certainly paranoia, and anxiety.
And so, check this out, and Shaquaya, to that point, like, I think you hit the nail on the head, because that's one of the reasons why I was like, okay, how should we have this conversation? Because marijuana, cannabis, is so culturally acceptable right now. We've talked about that, right? We're literally talking about a substance that is being discussed to be legal in this country, which may be soon, right? But the fact of the matter is, I didn't see this story as a cannabis story as much as it is about trust and the violation of trust.
Agreed. I think it is.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, suppose it wasn't cannabis, but something much more severe. Could have been some sort of LSD.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Or something more topically acceptable, like ibuprofen, but I still don't want someone crushing up ibuprofen in my food and giving it to me without telling me.
Giving it to me, for one, without me knowing.
Right.
And then for two, I mean, you got 60 to 70 people at this wedding. Like I said, men, women, elderly, and children. You putting this, I mean, you cooking the lasagna, the salad got it. She said the olive oil every element, every part of the menu.
No, it was a completely infused meal.
Completely infused with cannabis. And it's like, what were this caterer and this bride, what the hell were you thinking?
I question if the caterer asked if the guests would know. Presumably, if I'm a caterer and a bride commissions me to be the vendor for her wedding, and she specifically requests an infused meal, it is my assumption that she has the waivered rights of her guests. It is incumbent upon me to check, but it is my assumption, right? Because it's such a bizarre request to make a meal for 70 people at a wedding for it to be infused. One, that's not cheap. And two, I would assume that there is agreement to this, or that it is okay. And it just is, it's just wrong. On behalf of the guest, I'd like to assume it's okay for me to say they'll never be attending any of her events again if she is not sent to prison.
Right. She's facing jail time.
Definitely. But I think that it will invoke in them respectfully paranoia and or skepticism about other large events they would attend, which is just not fair because it's trauma.
So and that's the other part about it. Like, and I know some people might push back on this.
Mm-hmm.
Potlucks. So sorry.
I don't trust potlucks.
I can't do it.
I don't trust potlucks for.
I can't do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm at a point right now because my body is the way my body is set up, Shaquaya, that I need to have a level of accountability of who did what. You know what I mean? Like, when you cater somebody, at least outside of what this woman did, but at least you say, okay, this is the caterer. If I have a problem, I have somebody that's going to be held accountable for it, right? Because I tasted the food came from the caterer, she's the caterer. Right. Potluck, you don't know. I don't know. And I think that's the thing. Like, this will make me so paranoid that I couldn't even trust a friend inviting me over to a small dinner. I would be like, no, I can't do that. I can't do it. Farajii, what happened?
But it's such a rare and bizarre occasion. I'd hope people don't take this story to lace their concerns. Rightfully, you should be skeptical about, as you said, Farajii, unless you can truly identify where the food source is coming from. If you're not attending a restaurant, you know where it's coming from the kitchen directly. There's grounds to be skeptical of all of it, but I hope it doesn't lace people's concerns too much, because I've never heard of anything like this prior to this.
I've never heard of it. Matter of fact, the reason that this story comes up is simply because yesterday, the woman, the bride, and the caterer were charged. They were charged yesterday with delivering marijuana and tampering with guest food, along with the misdemeanor of culpable negligence. Culpable negligence. Break that for. I want you to. I know what you know. I know you know what that term means, Shaquaya. So that means that they knew, right?
You intentionally put people in harm's way and did not care to. So culpable negligence is, in short, doing harm intentionally without providing recess or occasion for the person upon which you are intending harm against to have an opportunity not to be harmed. Right. So it is, and by neglect, it's also indicating that there could have been more serious outcomes of the situation in terms or related to people's health, and you were not concerned with that, right? You neglected the well-being of people that were supposed to be in your care, so far as it relates to being your guest. And so,
right. So okay. So you knew. Now, here's the thing: the tampering charge alone, according to the documents, is a felony with a maximum penalty of up to 30 years in prison for each woman. Now I don't think they're going to get 30 years.
Right.
But that is a serious penalty. I did not know. I mean, I've heard of food tampering, but I didn't know it carried
I didn't either.
Up to 30 years in prison. I mean, can you imagine being in prison for food tampering, and you might be in prison longer than murderers?
Mm-hmm. Or longer than
just as long as a rapist.
Because is this tampering? I wonder if it applies to roofies or to drug-induced.
It probably. Well. And so my question would be, Shaquaya, do you think that is too severe for a situation like this, or is that just what these women should be facing?
I think it's the sentence window, and the maximum of that is severe. I think that if neither one of them should have, especially if they don't have prior misdemeanors or felonies, they absolutely should not get 30 years in prison. Now, I'd like for there to be room to think about, probation, I'm not sure how
no type of community service involving food.
Not community service, but like a commuted sentence after a certain period, maybe 8 to 12 months. But it's very hard for me to think about the maximum of this penalty for this case, even though it does you know, there was harm. There was harm. So I'm not trying to excuse that. And I certainly wonder what the guest of this wedding believed the right punishment would and should be. For the woman that was speaking in the article, she speaks more emotionally than more logically about what she thinks the consequence should be. She just knows that she was hurt, and it's hard for her to know that she was hurt by someone she trusted. But I doubt if all of these people that attended the wedding presumably loved or cared for this couple, they would want to see her in prison for long, and therefore there's room to think about, you know, to follow the case and really see what people go on the stand and say.
Let me tell you, if that happened to me, or if it happened to a family member of mine, or, you know, say my grandmother, because like I said, there were elderly people there.
Right.
Imagine this happening to your grandmother. I would want to issue some street justice first, and then let your ass sit in prison.
You definitely got to go.
You know what I'm saying? You be like, you gotta get that, at least that just like, you crazy. And I know that, you know, to Miranda Katie, she was like, I didn't even know. They didn't even ask me. Like some of these people probably would have gone along with it. Like, put a little something extra in my plate.
Cracking up as you were introducing the story, because I was rereading the story and looking at the anecdote from the individual who attended. And it's just, I think, you know, it would not have been an issue if they forewarned people and gave them the option to participate in the meal or not. But unfortunately, that's not the case, and therefore they're going to have to suffer the consequences. We shall see what those are.
Let me tell you something. People, and Christopher Perkins say, no, you should never play with anyone's food. Lock her up for 30 years at least. Let me tell you something. Christopher, like, lock her up for 30 years at least.
Well, I don't know why we even talking about, you know, black people, say,
go all in.
We ask anybody black, they're gonna be like, what? My food? Lock
right.
up. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, all due seriousness,
yeah,
like the level of trust in violation I would feel would be way off the meter. I wouldn't be able to trust you. I wouldn't even be able to trust anybody. And it only takes one, right? I mean, this is a very serious incident. I'm not trying to make any light of the situation, because it could have gone left much more than it had. But I would not be able to trust people. I know I wouldn't. I'd be like, I went to a wedding thinking one thing, and I come back hot. Look, the lady Miranda Katie said that she felt like she was literally about to die. That's how serious it was. She must not have been a cannabis user, because she's like, she felt literally like she was about to die. So much so that she posted on her phone, she left a message in case I died, somebody can know what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's serious.
Yeah.
That is absolutely. And I mean, for people, and I've heard, and I'm sure you probably heard stories, Shaquaya, of people who have done things to people's food, and you know what I mean? Or just done things like pranks and stuff. And nowadays, you can't do that to people, man. You got to be very, very mindful that some stuff, I get on my children about pranks and stuff, because some stuff stays with you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You because you tap into a certain, like, you can create a fear, or you tapping into somebody's fear when you do certain things like that. And that's the very serious side of it. That's the very serious side of it.
It is. I pulled a really bad prank as a kid one time, and it scarred me for life to know how not to play with people. And it was with food, ironically, but not used correctly. So I'll leave spirit. Right. But there's what you
did it leave a scar on the person you pranked?
Yeah, I was at a friend's. I was like 6 years old, and we were playing with everybody.
You wouldn't be a friend of mine, Shaquaya.
No. You know, everybody who goes to sleep first gets messed with. And in my 6-year-old mind, people were like putting toothpaste and ketchup on people's face, and I was like, "Oh, hot sauce!" And I put hot sauce on someone's face, and it got in their eye, and it was. Yeah, no, we don't play with people's food. We don't play with food on people. We don't. I was 6. Don't judge me. I was 6.
Oh, we would not have been friends.
No. The girl
no. Even 30 years later, I'd be like,
her in years, but
you'd be like, hey, so we cool?
Sorry,
like, never
Dominique.
cool,
If you're
Shaquille.
watching this, my bad, Dominique. You know it was. I was 6. It wasn't there. I was not there. I was not there. But
No,
you don't play
that's
with
not
people's food. You don't.
All right, so I hope Miranda, Katie, and all those folks that went to the wedding of this lady, of this bride, really find. I mean, seriously, I hope they are all right. But more importantly, don't lace people's food with cannabis. I think that should be I feel like that should be pretty obvious. But I just want to make sure that for any watcher out there, don't lace anybody's food with cannabis.
Yeah, no, it's just
Don't
not
do those things. Don't lace people's food with nothing other than flavor and good seasoning. All right, folks, speaking of grace and mercy, I wanted to talk about Viola Davis, who is having a phenomenal time right now being Viola Davis. If you haven't checked out her new special, Netflix special with Oprah, have y'all checked it out? And I'm bringing Lisa and Iman. Have y'all seen Viola Davis?
I've seen clips from it, and I've watched the show First Ladies.
Yeah. All right, so you've seen clips of her talking with Oprah?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Firstly, let me just say this. Like, Viola Davis is just super, super uber talented and beautiful. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, she just has a very, very special soul. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I started watching a little bit of the Netflix special, and I was just like, I like her. You know what I mean? She's just like seems like a genuinely good person. Well, folks, apparently, and this is, we talked about giving people a chance. She's been under fire for her latest portrayal as First Lady Michelle Obama in Showtime's anthology series, The First Ladies. She has been promoting her new memoir, Finding Me, and people have been highly critical of Viola Davis, who is one of the greatest actresses of our generation. I would have to say, hands down. But they've been critical of her performance as Michelle Obama, and much of it is based on what they call actors' choices.
She overdid the lip thing. She overdid,
and everybody says that she overdid the pursing of the lips.
Yeah, like way too much. Like Michelle didn't exaggerate her lips that much. Now, when she smiles, okay, cool. But every time she talks like that, like what? Like why you have to do that every time? So that was my only gripe about it. But other than that,
yeah, apparently people just didn't like the fact that, I mean, that was just one of the big criticisms. Yeah. I went to school for acting, and I often think about, you know, when you take on roles. And she said this, and Viola Davis said this. She said it's almost impossible to portray a person that's, one, that is so well beloved, and then two, that's still living.
Yeah,
like with Michelle Pfeiffer, and I forgot the other actress name that played in the show. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're talking about people that are dead,
right?
But now you're playing Michelle Obama, who is walking around, is alive. You know what I mean? So you're going to be very, very critical of that. And she said she just makes some choices. But in response to some of these critics, this is what Viola Davis had to say. Check this out. She put it out there. She said, how do you move on from the hurt from failure? When she said people always coming at you and being very critical about your work. She said, how do you move on from that? She said, but you have to. Not everything is going to be an awards-worthy performance. Critics absolutely serve no purpose. And I'm not saying that to be nasty either. They always feel like they're telling you something that you don't know. Somehow that you're living a life that you're surrounded by people who lied to you, and I'm going to be the person that leans in and tells you the truth. So it gives them an opportunity to be cruel to you. Lise, do you agree with that assessment?
I mean, I do. I think feedback is much more constructive because at least you're telling a person how to fix it. But when it comes to you being in the limelight, I think this is a part of the job. She said that too. Like, it's a part of the job. When you are acting, people are going to critique you. They're going to say, you know, you should have did it this way and that way and this way. But if you understand that most people will never act in their lives. They can tell you that, but it's hard for you to understand how you would do that without actually doing that. If you've never had to play someone or portray a character, especially like she said, a living character, because no one knows if Gillian Anderson is the one that played Eleanor Roosevelt, right. If that's maybe she doesn't quite talk like that, or maybe her teeth didn't quite look like that, or we don't know because none of those people, they're all dead. So nobody can say, hey, that's not how that's supposed to be. So I understand from her perspective how difficult that is. And I agree. Feedback, yes, but this is also a part of the job if you want to be
she said that.
A-list celebrity.
That's what she said. She said getting criticism, Iman, is what she calls occupational hazard. Right? Like that just comes up. It just comes along. Anytime you do anything in public, be prepared to be criticized.
Yeah, you can't
that's anything.
Everyone. Yeah, you can't satisfy everyone.
No.
At all. So they're going to continue to criticize it, but they have to understand also the pressure. Michelle Obama is like Michelle Obama.
I know.
Like it's Beyonce and then Michelle. So that's a lot to portray. Like I said, she's still alive. She's still her book tour. That was phenomenal. Everybody loved her. So it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure. I know I couldn't play Michelle Obama. I know for a fact I couldn't imitate Michelle Obama. Even just in the way she talks and how she walks. Like, you have to study a person, literally study another human being and be that other human being as much as possible. That's a hard job to have.
I mean, let me tell you something. Acting is already hard enough. Acting a real life person is actually super, super hard. Mm-hmm. But then to get the pivotal moments, to really get those pivotal moments, it's going to be. And look, check this out. Y'all remember the movie South Side with You?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Did you see it, Lise?
Uh-huh.
When the brother that played Barack Obama, Parker Sawyer, he's in P-Valley now.
Is he?
Yeah, he's in P-Valley. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
I can't hear.
All right, we can hear you now.
We can hear. She can't hear us. She can't hear us.
She can't hear us. I can't help Iman right now. I can't help her right now. We're gonna try to get her
very fluently. For
she's good. Yeah, she's good.
We're gonna try to get your audio straight. But in the movie Southside with You, Tika Sumter played Michelle Obama, the young Michelle Obama. I don't remember Lise people grilling her as much as they're grilling Viola Davis for her portrayal.
Right. I think it's because Tika didn't necessarily try to embody Michelle Obama. She was just portraying Michelle Obama, where I think Viola Davis was trying to...
What's the difference?
So she was being Tika in the role of Michelle. So she didn't change her voice. She didn't change her, a lot of appearance about herself. She just was playing a role, where I think with Viola, it was more of, I want to really embody what it feels like in order to be Michelle. And those are the mannerisms that Michelle has. And Michelle Obama knows Viola Davis. So I think if she was upset by that, I think she would say, hey girl, wait a minute now. I don't be doing that all the time. But she didn't do that. And she actually got a chance to sit down with Michelle and talk to her. And even if you listen and you have watched the show, you can hear that Viola Davis, although her voice is deeper than Michelle, she's trying to even speak like her. You can hear that she's using the same vernacular, and she's trying to embody that character, and that's not what happened in the other film.
And it's interesting because it was reported by The Root. It was reported when Viola Davis was asked, what does Michelle Obama think of your performance? She said, quote, I don't have any personal contact with Michelle Obama.
Oh, I thought she knew her.
No!
I could have sworn they had been in the same place together at some point.
Lise, I thought the same thing. Then when I read that, I was like...
But even so, you don't think Michelle would have reached out? But even if that's the case, you don't think Michelle Obama... Right, she knows Oprah, but you don't think Michelle Obama would go in her DMs like, hey, girl, hey, no. What? Like, I don't know. That's a no. Michelle can get... The president of the United States or former presidents can get phone numbers really scary. Like, if they want your phone number, they can get it.
Oh, no, we know that. No, I mean, look. It's not like Viola Davis, an A-list actress. Viola Davis is friends with Oprah. Oprah knows Michelle Obama. I was personally blown that she said she didn't have any personal contact with Michelle Obama. But not just from the vantage point of her being Viola Davis, but just also from the vantage point of acting.
Right.
You know what I mean? Having that like, hey, Michelle, can I shadow you in your day for a couple of days?
Oh, you mean she should have like been directly underneath of her?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think for the New Edition, that New Edition documentary, Bobby Brown and
that's what I was going to say. Literally.
I think it's different from shadowing Bobby Brown in the former first lady. I think it's a whole different scenario.
Hold on, Lise. I'm talking about just in terms of as an actress, as an actor. You know what I'm saying? Like Bobby Brown, and I forgot the young brother's name. He plays in Power now, but
he's really good too.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite characters in Power, actually.
Yeah, I can't think of his name. Oh my gosh!
But we're gonna bring it up. But Bobby Brown taught him, like, yo, this is what happened. Like, he was on set when that BET New Edition movie was there. You know what I mean? And I'm just saying from an actor's point of view, it's like if you got the person that you're portraying that's living, you're gonna sit down with them. For example, like a lot of times actors have to rely on footage. Like I remember Denzel Washington talking about this when he played Malcolm X. He had to rely on the footage. He had to get the cadence down because Malcolm had a very unique style of speaking. All of those things. So for Viola Davis to say, I don't have any personal contact with her, it was like blowing me away. I was like, wow,
I still think it would be more difficult because of all the Secret Service and all the things that Michelle is doing, that maybe they couldn't find the time to allow that to happen. I don't know. But you're right. Even when Jamie Foxx did Ray Charles, he did shadow him and he got a chance to like talk to him. I don't know if he shadowed him, but he did get a chance to speak to him directly before he passed away.
Right.
So maybe she should have did that and it would have changed the outcome of the way people, because I think people were looking at it like an insult to Michelle, and because there's so many tropes about Black women, and when you purse your lips, it's like this angry, mad Black woman like stereotype, and I think some people were offended by that. I wasn't offended by it because I actually like her on the show. I actually think she's doing an amazing job, but I think some people were like, girl, we got this whole mad Black woman thing. She was called an angry Black woman, which is something she talks about in the show and in her book. Why would this be the trait that you portray? And I think that's what a lot of people were upset by.
Can I call us out for a second? Like, just for a second. Black people, we are critical as hell of others.
Yes.
Like, we're the worst and hardest critics. Like, why we can't give, like we just said, grace? Give people some grace. Give people some grace and mercy. I was thinking about how Disney, I'm thinking, why don't Black people have their have our Encanto and our Mona? Why don't we have that? Because I would be nervous to depict Black people in any kind of form because the nose is too big. Why the nose so big? The lips, why don't speak proper English? We don't talk like that. Like, come on.
Wait a minute. Encanto did have Black people. They just are.
Oh no. I'm not
Afro-Latina.
saying they did anything
I'm
wrong.
about to say I like the Black people in Encanto.
Wait,
hey, look, let me just say, listen, let's look.
Her determination. Her determination and perseverance.
Right. let me and why is her screen upside down? But here's the thing. Here's the thing. To the point of representation, I think it's just simply because we're in a space right now. One, that we have the space to criticize, right? Whereas before we just had to take it. Now we have a space to say something. So I think that's one thing. But then I think the second thing is like we want it to be perfect, not knowing that the people that are always producing this content, they don't always have us at the table. It's not just white people, it's everybody. It's black people can be in the room and they have their view. Everybody has a view of people and culture. And I think that that's the thing. Like, for example, you bring up, she brought up, black people in Disney film. Disney put out a movie called Soul. It was about black jazz music. And they had to go through the whole process of, talking to jazz artists, black jazz artists. They had to go through the process of making sure that the characters look like they belong in a jazz show. I mean, there is a lot of time spent on that. And I think that it's just about us wanting to be represented properly on film. Now, I mean, look, you gotta trust your artists too. You have to trust your artists. And I think, to Iman, that's to your point, you have to trust your artists. Viola Davis hasn't done anything in her catalog of work to depict black women less than. She comes to the table with a catalog, with a body of work to show that she takes great care and she's sensitive in time in her artistic choices of portraying characters. So we rip her apart like she a brand new, actress. Yeah. It's like Viola Davis is
like
played
she don't have
Fences.
business.
She played in Fences, right?
Like she didn't kill How to Get Away with Murder.
I mean, come on. She killing people with the style and on camera. She killing people.
Right.
Look, I'm with y'all both though. Give the sister some grace, man. Like, that was an artist's choice. Let it ride like that. Like, unless Michelle Obama comes out with a statement and say Viola Davis has portrayed me the worst in history, which I doubt she will do.
Not publicly. She might come to over, but not publicly.
She might call a homegirl and say, "Listen, I don't know what she was doing, but check this out." She might call a homegirl.
She might call a homegirl.
She's tasty.
All right. Give the sister some grace. All right. All right, folks. We wanted to have a discussion I thought was very interesting about Will Smith. Now, since the Oscar slap, I think a lot of us have been asking the question about where's Will Smith? What is going on with him? Then the latest rumors, the latest conversation about Will Smith has been that he's going to get an official divorce from Jada Pinkett Smith. We don't know. I mean, I think there's been just some rumors about it. But here's a part of his life that I think is interesting. When he had a conversation with David Letterman on David Letterman's show, and my next guest will be, and he talked about an experience that he had. Check this out, folks. I can't make this up. He talked about an experience that he had where he had a vision of losing everything. Now, he had this vision-like experience, this vision before the Oscar slap. So let me just share with you what he said this vision was all about. Take a look. Check this out. Keenan, let's post this one. According to Inside, where he had this conversation, he was talking about an experience which he describes as being the individual most hellish psychological experience of his life, where he was forced to face his fear of losing his fortune, reputation, and success. And so he said in his vision, he said, I'm drinking, I'm sitting there, and then all of a sudden, it's like I start seeing all of my money flying away, and my house is flying away, and my career is flying away. This is what he told David Letterman. He said, I'm trying to grab for my money and my career. My whole life is getting destroyed. He said, I'm in there and I'm wanting to vomit and all of that. He said, I hear a voice saying, this is what the fuck it is. This is what the fuck life is. And I'm going, oh shit. He said he told David Letterman that the experience, while frightening, taught him a valuable lesson. He said, quote, anything that happens in my life, I can handle it. I can handle any person I lose. I can handle anything that goes wrong in my life. I can handle anything in my marriage. I can handle anything that this life has to offer me. Let's bring Bakari Jones back into this. Bakari.
Why are you bringing me into this, Farajii?
I gotta bring you into this.
Man.
You're my culture crew member for the day. What are you talking about? But here's why I found this to be fascinating, and I really wanted to talk about it because I like to, you know, for me, I like to see myself as being one who is always striving to be in tune with himself, with the creator, with God, with the universe. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like to understand, because I truly believe that as human beings, we're not just physical beings, right? That there are deeply there are parts of us that are rooted in the intangible. There are parts of us that are attracted to the unseen, right? Mm-hmm. And those parts make up the nature in which we are created in. I'm trying not to go out in space with this, Bakari.
I'm with you.
So when I heard and read the story, I said to myself, this man was given, and this doesn't happen to everybody, but a man was given a glimpse of his future, right? And then when I read the story and then just kind of reflected on it, I said, damn, he was given a glimpse of his future, but why? So I think that there is something very powerful. I don't think Will Smith would share something that personal, that intimate, right? To say, oh, yes, God favors me, or, oh, yes, I'm so in tune with the universe. It's like when we hear artists talking about how, and I think, who was this? Sam Cooke, who talked about, you know, kind of seeing himself, how he would transition from this life. We know artists like a Tupac, these individuals who had been given visions of how they would transition from this life.
Yeah.
So I do think it's possible that all of us, that any one of us can be given a vision of a future life. I believe in that. I believe that's possible. But I think it's so powerful that it does really happen. And I don't know, and I'm trying to process it myself, like how, you know, Will said, I can handle anything that comes in my life. And I'm glad that he kind of gleaned that lesson from that experience. But it's really fascinating to me that he saw himself losing. It's so fascinating. What are your thoughts about that, Bakari? I'm itching to know.
Man, so I mean, I do think that there are folks that, well, one, let me go back to the beginning. I think that you're right. I think there's the tangible and the intangible, right? The seen and the unseen. That, you know, we're all experiencing, walking through in this life. I think, you know, they said he was on a psychedelic when he had this experience. We had this vision. I think it's interesting to see what Will Smith in this instance, what he perceives as losing what he perceives as everything, right? So in that story, he sort of is talking about how it's the money and it's the house and the career, and what he was able to hold on to was his family. So I think that, to me, I'm like, well, look, if he loses all of the tangible and he's able to hold on to the intangible, then, you know, I think it's a beautiful thing. And it then makes me wonder, you know, was that the slap, was that in favor of him? That really was him acting in favor of maintaining the intangible, right? Maintaining the relationship that he and his wife have. So I didn't even hear about the rumor of he and Jada Pinkett divorcing. I didn't hear about that yet. But yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. I think Will Smith has so much talent, and that, you know, I hope that we are able to kind of move forward culturally, knowing that no one is their worst mistake. You know, that we all have we should be able to move in a space where we can, you know, kind of experience a level of reconciliation and redemption. So I'm hoping that this is, you know, him seeing maybe not another life for himself, but I think that I feel like the way that I perceive Will Smith in the media is somebody who seems to care about the intangible pieces, right? That he has the money and the house and all of those things, but I just feel like Will Smith doesn't present as somebody who is overly concerned about those things. Like, yeah, he got them, but I feel like he presents as somebody who, you know, the family man, you know, like having his kids and his wife around seem really, really important and critical to him. So I think it's interesting to me that I'm like, was this really even a vision? Because it seems like that's already who he is. So I hope that, you know, the brother is able to move forward. I do think that what's interesting to me is going to be what his net worth is moving forward after being not necessarily banned from the Oscars, because I don't know how much that would impact his net worth, but specifically resigning from the Academy of Motion Pictures, right? So I'm just curious about what that impact will have on his net worth and how much his financial future will be impacted by these decisions moving forward. And is that really him, quote unquote, losing it all and being able to maintain his family instead? So those are my thoughts about it, Farajii. It's an odd situation though. Oh, I can't hear you.
There we go. I was saying I love him, and I think you bringing up some great points. I think that it's going to be interesting to see what his net worth is going to be, right? Like after all of this. First and foremost, look, I'm a believer. I'm an optimist. I think he's going to bounce back, right?
Yeah.
Like he didn't do something so egregious that, you know, it wasn't like he murdered somebody, he violated children or something like, you know what I'm saying? It's not something so egregious. Yes, it was a stupid thing, but he's going to bounce back.
Right.
But I think that it's just that, like Will Smith, and I don't know, like there's more than meets the eye to Will Smith. That's obvious.
I'm with you there.
Yeah. Like he's not just just an actor. You know what I mean? He's a person that has gone through some things, but then more importantly, I think he understands human beings. I think he understands a lot about life. And I think there's something that we can all kind of learn from him, right? And his journey. And, you know, at the end of the day, he's a man, just like he's a regular human being.
Mm-hmm.
But to have this vision of him losing it before the Oscars, woo, that's like a timing thing for me. You know what I mean? It's like, and you know,
I'm not willing to say that. I mean, it's like according to who, right? I hope that this is not. I hope he doesn't perceive himself as losing. I don't think losing everything he worked so hard to build. I hope he doesn't perceive that incident as him. And I hope it, you know, I hope financially, I hope in terms of the future of his career, I hope he's not forfeited everything with that. But I don't know. We'll see. Like, what will be Will Smith's next role, right? Have roles been taken away from him that we haven't heard about yet, right? I don't know, but I'm hoping that this is that vision is not, in fact, coming to fruition for him.
Let me just share what some folks are saying about him. B Dizzle said, I'm done talking about Will Smith. All I want is healing for him, Chris, and Jada. All this other stuff is just other stuff. I get it. I get it. I get it. B Dizzle, I get it. So pretty much B Dizzle has checked out on this conversation.
I'm with B Dizzle. I'm with B Dizzle.
Davey Floater said, Will's gonna be fine. Yep, he will be. Taylor said, he is very introspective, so I think this situation will work itself out. He cares. I agree. McCole said, Will Smith is not the first and will not be the last to slap someone for saying something they didn't like. Will Smith's money will be good. Yeah, I think his money is going to be good. But this is bigger than money because, 4 projects he lost or have been delayed, right? Like Bad Boys, a project about his book, Will, which is, I think is a great book. And 2 other projects have been kind of put on hold. So that is interesting. Karina said, look, it's hard to believe, and he should just keep quiet right now. I love Will Smith, but his behavior on the public stage was out of order. Handle that behind the screen. Right.
Yep.
Donita said he may just be in his emotions lost in different ways. Different when you make $40 million than when you make $40,000 than when you make millions. Folks that make millions jump out of windows.
Well,
facts. But see, Will is not that type of guy, though. He came from humble beginnings. I'm not gonna say he came from nothing. He came from a 2-parent household. He came from humble beginnings. You know what I'm saying?